World War III theory, the silent global collapse scenario. World wars have never truly started in a single visible moment. History shows a consistent pattern. Before every major global conflict, life appears completely normal on the surface. People continue their daily routines, economies function, governments speak of stability, and news cycles feel routine. Yet beneath this surface, invisible tensions slowly accumulate for years, sometimes even decades. According to this theory, wars do not begin when the first shot is fired. They begin long before anyone realizes it. Economic instability, rising energy disputes, political polarization, technological competition, and cyber operations are not isolated incidents. Instead, they are interconnected stress signals of a global system under pressure. In this view, World War III may not be a future event. It may already be unfolding in stages that are not recognized as war. A fractured global system. The modern world is no longer a single unified structure. Instead, it is increasingly divided into overlapping zones of influence. These are often described as three major global systems: economic power centers that control financial flows, energy networks that control resources and supply chains, digital sovereignty zones that control data and information. These systems are deeply interconnected, yet they are also in constant competition. Unlike traditional wars, this competition does not always involve direct military confrontation. Instead, influence is applied through indirect pressure. A nation can be weakened without a single missile being launched. Financial systems can be disrupted through sanctions or market manipulation. Energy dependence can be used as leverage. Digital infrastructure can be targeted through cyber operations. Most importantly, these actions are rarely labeled as war. They are described as policy, strategy, or economic measures. Yet their effects can destabilize entire nations. In this sense, war has evolved. It no longer requires an official declaration. It begins gradually, silently, and often invisibly. The question of the first spark. One of the central debates in World War III theories is identifying the first spark. However, the difficulty lies in defining something deeper. There may not be a single identifiable first event. Instead, what appears as a sudden war may actually be the visible phase of a process that has already been ongoing. The invisible cyber warfare layer. In modern conflict theory, cyberspace represents one of the most critical battlefields. Unlike traditional warfare, cyber operations are invisible, fast, and difficult to attribute. Global infrastructure, including banking systems, hospitals, logistics networks, and energy grids, is now deeply dependent on interconnected digital systems. This creates a critical vulnerability. A single breach, exploit, or coordinated cyber operation could potentially disrupt entire nations without physical invasion. Even more concerning is the issue of attribution. In cyberspace, identifying the true source of an attack is extremely difficult. Signals can be rerouted, identities can be masked, and false evidence can be created. This leads to a dangerous shift in global conflict logic. It is no longer about who attacked, but about who is believed to have attacked. That perception alone can trigger real-world consequences. Space as the next battlefield. Another major theory suggests that the next stage of global conflict may extend beyond Earth itself. Modern civilization relies heavily on satellites for communication, navigation, surveillance, and military coordination. Systems like GPS and global communication networks form the backbone of both civilian life and defense infrastructure. If these systems were disrupted or disabled, the effects would be immediate and global. Military forces would lose coordination, transportation systems would become unreliable, financial markets would experience disruption, and communication networks could fail. Because of this dependency, some theorists argue that the true opening phase of a global conflict could begin in space, not on Earth. The accidental war scenario. One of the most alarming possibilities is that a global conflict could begin unintentionally. History has recorded numerous close calls where misunderstandings nearly led to large-scale war. Radar errors, misinterpreted signals, and military exercises mistaken for real attacks have all created dangerous situations in the past. At a global scale, such an error could escalate rapidly. Once automated defense systems, human decision delays, and alliance obligations are involved, control over escalation becomes extremely limited. In such a scenario, war would not be planned or intentional. It would be a chain reaction that no single actor could stop. Global domino effect. If a large-scale conflict were to begin, its effects would not remain localized. In today's interconnected world, consequences would spread rapidly across all systems. Financial markets would collapse or become highly unstable. Currency values could fluctuate dramatically. Energy prices would surge globally. Migration patterns would shift on a massive scale. Food supply chains could be disrupted. Unlike historical conflicts, modern globalization ensures that no region is completely isolated. Every system is linked, meaning disruption in one area can quickly affect others. The darkest theory. Perhaps the most controversial interpretation of World War III is that it may not be a traditional war at all. Instead, it could represent a systemic transition phase in global history. In this interpretation, the existing global order begins to break down. Power structures shift and reorganize, new systems of control emerge, global influence is redistributed. However, this transformation would not occur smoothly. It would be chaotic, uneven, and highly disruptive. It would not be a single event, but a prolonged period of instability. Final question. In the end, all theories converge on one question. Is World War III something that will begin in the future, or are we already living through its early stages without realizing it?